Hi everyone, Mike Holmes here, and welcome back to another episode of Holmes on Holmes, the podcast. Today we're going to be talking to Mike from Kinetico and Dan from Elgin Pure Waters. We're going to learn everything about water. Also, we're going to be doing a water test first, all about my well, what we need to do, how we need to size it, am I good, am I bad? We'll be right back after this. All right, so I brought in some water from my well. Obviously, I put in a new well. We're testing it. We've tested it a few times already, and right now, this is 2 weeks in. We are just going to see through this machine, and this is the hardness meters. Not hardness, TDS.
TDS, correct.
Okay, so what the hell? Let's just do this.
Sounds good, sounds good. Okay, we'll get started. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take, this is a spin tester. So what this does is analyzes the water in real time, spits it out into a digital reading that we can analyze and get an idea of the numbers.
What's in the water.
Right, so that we're able to properly size your equipment. So this is water that you've brought in. What I'm going to do is just slowly fill a disc here.
So much like blood, this thing spins, like
Yep.
I've seen, because what you're trying to do is figure out what the hell's in the water.
Correct. So it will analyze the water, and like I said, give us some numbers that we can compare and look at to properly size the equipment for your home.
What we're trying to do here is to determine for my house, the new well, what type of softener, how big, etc., depending on TDS, which we're going to talk about in detail, which is total dissolved salts. What that number is, how to break it down, and how to make the water pretty as healthy as I can in my home.
Improve it, yeah, improve the quality for you, for your health, and for the house as well.
Yeah, only at Improve Canada. We're trying to improve my water.
Okay, so there you go. So what it's doing is just spinning it around. The water's being forced onto the outsides of the disc. They will come out into a specific color that the machine analyzes, and then will give us a digital readout for us.
How long does this take?
This is a couple of minutes at the most. So
until it's ready.
Until it's ready. In fact, yeah, it'll do this a couple of times, and then it'll stop, and the screen will change for you.
Okay, and at the same time, we're going to take the TDS meter.
We can do that in the meantime, actually.
Which is going to tell us the total number of TDS.
Yeah,
total dissolved
total
solids.
dissolved solids. So basically
solids.
And it's basically a measure of all of the mineral and such that the water has dissolved on its way to your well.
See, I said salts, total dissolved salts, but it's solids.
Total dissolved solids, yeah.
But it's, in essence, it's salt. Is that right?
Well, it's probably
Salt
made
can
up of calcium, magnesium. In wells, that's where a lot of the hardness comes from. This machine will give us a hardness reading on. And it can also be anything else that may be in your water that you can't see, taste, or smell. And that'll also be what, that machine will indicate to us, so that we'll know, as Dan said, what equipment you need to resolve what's in your water.
It's lower.
It is a little bit lower from the last time, and yours has fluctuated a little bit, new well and such.
And we're going to talk about that.
Correct. So it's sitting at about 810 parts per million.
So 810 parts per million on TDS, which is total dissolved solids. That's a high number, yes?
It is. So let's give you a comparison. So we live around the Great Lakes around here. Standard lake water, depending on proximity and such, you're in and around about 180 parts per million, depending on the lake and such. So lake water is a little bit lower on the dissolved solids, mainly because the hardness is lower. So what this will help us do is figure out what a large portion of that TDS is comprised of.
Okay.
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 All right. So we'll do a quick reading here, and then we'll turn that back over.
Which is a whole other subject about lakes, and I want to get into that later. How good is that water? It may be low in TDS, but it could have other problems with it.
As it's under the influence of runoff.
Which becomes city water.
Correct. So, so the readings on here for yours, we came out with a pH of 7.7, alkalinity 102, hardness, you're down to 29 grains, and that's fluctuated a little bit.
Holy cow, that was at 60 something at the beginning, and now it's
right
down.
At the beginning.
So it's down to a controllable number.
Yep.
For water softening.
Much more controllable, yes.
Okay, so our TDS is at 810 parts per million. What about the pH? What number does that mean?
So pH is 7.7. That's a good number. So the pH is the measure of the acidity or alkalinity of your water. And the reason that's important is we want to make sure that the water is not going to be corrosive. If the pH is very low, then we would want to neutralize the water by raising that pH back up. Neutral pH is 7, and at 7.7, that is actually a pretty good pH number. It gives a little bit of alkalinity to the water. It's going to help with reducing corrosion from high alkalinity, or sorry, from acidic water. So 7.7 it will help us make sure that the pipes don't corrode and things like that.
Okay, years ago I heard this theory about using a copper jug, and with that copper jug you're going to take your tap water, it's going to sit in the copper jug, you put it in the fridge, you take it out, you drink it, and the copper is supposed to add alkalinity to the water. How correct is that?
I've never heard that one before.
Really?
Not a common one.
This was done in thousands of years ago.
I think I've heard something about copper provides a certain level of sterility to the water as it runs through the pipes, but as far as raising alkalinity, that would only be if some of the copper were to come off due to acidity, and it would then bring the copper into the water because it would be slightly aggressive, right?
Okay, so that's another subject we're going to have to learn about. But I pay attention to things. And
Interesting.
It's like, is this real? Like we're trying to raise the level of alkaline in the water for our own health? What happens if there's too much?
Too much alkalinity can cause another issue altogether. It can throw off tastes, it can throw off odors, and aggressive water as well. So high alkalinity can also stage for aggressive water.
Everything is about balance is what I'm seeing. It's
Correct.
totally about balance. Okay, so any bad news?
Actually, this one's looking pretty good. So earlier we tested for iron, and actually we had a minimal amount of, I think the one we had was 0.3,
Yep.
Your total iron right now is down to 0.
Zero. So I don't need an iron filter, which is a good thing. An iron filter is going to require 5 gallons per minute to flush, correct?
Most at a bare minimum will require a certain flow rate, and we were dancing around that flow rate at your place. So we were hoping to try to make sure that the flow rate was enough that the softener would operate and the house was sufficient. But obviously with a lower flow rate, it makes things like iron removers harder to operate.
Okay, so I think we should sit back down and we are going to go into detail over this, so I can teach you, you can teach me, because the things that I've learned in the last couple of months, I'm maybe a little nervous, just a little nervous. Come on over here.
Sounds good. Great.